You've got the agenda in front of you. If you haven't noticed, Mayor Mitchell is away for the week, so you're stuck with me. Rumor has it he's in Toronto recruiting the Maple Leafs to relocate to Bridgewater, so we wish him Godspeed with that. You've got the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, we'll consider it approved. I don't think we have any announcements tonight, but we'll see. Wayne?
Couple for the Bridgewater Museum.
Perfect.
They have some workshops going on Saturdays from 2 to 4. And on February the 2nd, Commercial and Industrial History of Bridgewater with Peter Eichel. Should be very interesting. February 9th, Machine with Clark Bissell. February the 16th, CD Saturday. And ending up the month, February 23rd, Ukulele Jam. That's all at the Bridgewater Museum, 2 to 4 Saturdays. And admission is donations only.
Wonderful. The machine seems to be attracting lots of attention and so on. Yeah. Any other announcements? All right. Are there any delegations? No delegations tonight? No one wants to speak? All right. We'll move that forward. Staff introductions. I believe our Director of Planning and Recreation has a few staff she would like to introduce to us. New staff.
That's right.
Thanks, Jessica.
So first I'd like to introduce Miles Cornish. He's here as on-site energy manager for Efficiency Nova Scotia, working with the town. So Miles, come join. Yeah, I'm going to force you to step on over here. So he's a professional engineer and a graduate of mechanical engineering from Dalhousie University. He's going to be splitting his time between working on the town's energy and smart cities challenge initiatives with the Planning and Recreation Department, and also working with the Engineering Department to identify energy efficiency opportunities within the town's operations and renew our energy management plan for town facilities. Prior to working with Efficiency Nova Scotia, Miles was an aeronautical engineer at IMP Aerospace and Defense and volunteered for a number of renewable energy initiatives outside his workplace. And he worked on the design and implementation of New Glasgow's LED streetlight retrofit that helped save the town over $200,000 a year on electricity costs. So we're hoping for big things from you, Miles. No pressure. But he also helped support wind farm development in Ellershouse and If You Build It, a community-led organization focused on developing hands-on skills to build your own renewable energy generating systems. So we're thrilled to have Miles aboard. I don't know if you want to...
Wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jessica. Really happy to be here and be part of Leon's team along with Jessica. I'm looking forward to finding some ways to save some money and then hopefully reinvest in some energy efficient opportunities.
Wonderful. Welcome. We love that statement. Yeah. Saving money.
Excellent. So it's a 2-year, 1 to 2 year arrangement that we have with Efficiency Nova Scotia right now. So I'd also like to introduce you to Greg Gutko. So he's joining us on a 2-year term as the Energy Finance and Development Coordinator to help with the implementation of the Community Energy Investment Plan and the Smart Cities Challenge project. So Greg and his partner Jen recently relocated to Halifax from Toronto. And Greg is originally from a small mining town in northwestern Quebec and has spent the past 4 years working at the Toronto Renewable Energy Co-op, or Tapestry Community, as the organization's community investment manager. So he brings a wealth of experience to our team, and he's worked on solar projects, innovation hubs, a biogas plant at the Toronto Zoo. Those are just some of the examples of the creative and forward-thinking ventures that he and his team helped develop through community financing and local engagement. So again, we're very excited to have Greg join us for 2 years, and if you wanted to say it, you don't have to.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to work on a great team. I think we have really exciting ambitions, and I've met some of you folks before, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other again, so I look forward to it.
Great. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
So I assume you two gentlemen are relocating to Bridgewater, are you, at some point? Not just yet. All right. Thanks. All right, we have the minutes of January 14th, 2019, regular council meeting. Are there any additions or deletions or edits to those? No? If not, we'll assume those are approved. All right. Then we've got a planning item, development agreement application for 25 Dominion Street, and I assume that's Mackenzie Childs. That's a planner, Mackenzie Childs, yes.
Welcome, Mackenzie.
Thank you. So yeah, this is for the development agreement.
the development agreement for 25 Dominion Street. Thank you. So the application is to request the addition of 1 unit to an existing 6-unit residential dwelling. The majority of the changes will be within the building, as the owners are interested in converting, thank you, an existing 3-bedroom unit into 1 1-bedroom and 1 bachelor unit. They plan to also add an additional driveway off of Pleasant Street for 2 vehicles and add an outside entrance at the back of the property. The property is zoned as restricted commercial, or C6, and the surrounding zoning is a mixture of more restricted commercial, historic downtown commercial, high-density residential, downtown residential, and institutional. And the surrounding land uses are single, 2, and multi-unit residential, as well as some churches and schools nearby. The future land use is designated as limited commercial, which is consistent with the existing zoning. And so a development agreement is required because multi-unit dwellings are only permitted in the C6 zone with a development agreement. There can be a maximum of 30 units per acre, which in this instance works out to 8 units on this property. And this property is considered legal non-conforming right now because it's already a multi-unit residential building, but the use was in place before the current planning documents were implemented. So with a DA in place, the property would become a conforming use. The objective statements of the municipal planning strategy envision this area as diverse and walkable while controlling land use and development in a manner that will minimize conflict between land uses, encourage compact development to promote healthy, close-knit neighborhoods, and enable a range of housing options. And the municipal planning strategy has policies regarding general, residential, and commercial development. So regard was given to conflicting land uses, strategic growth, housing choice, residential densification, adequate services, transportation and traffic, and environmental suitability. And these were addressed when drafting the development agreement. So the development agreement will limit development on the property to the use of a 7-unit dwelling, as well as the uses permitted already in the C6 zone listed in the land use bylaw. And it specifies an additional driveway that would be built on the south side of the property. It must be no more than 40 feet deep and 20 feet wide in order to accommodate 2 vehicles side by side, but still while maintaining adequate space between the driveway and the adjacent property on Dominion Street. And any changes, deletions, or additions to access points would need approval by the traffic authority, as well as any existing trees of 3 inches or greater caliper must be retained unless removal is approved by the development officer, and that's in order to maintain a buffer between that property and the adjacent one on Pleasant Street. So a public participation meeting was held on Tuesday, November 6th, here in Council Chambers at 6 p.m. No members of the public attended. We did receive a phone call from an adjacent property owner, and their relevant questions were regarding proximity of the additional driveway to their property and any nuisance associated with that driveway. So those were taken into consideration when drafting the DA. So staff recommend that council give first consideration to the development agreement for 25 Dominion Street, and that council schedule a public hearing for the development agreement during the regular meeting of council on Monday, February 25th at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Perfect. Any questions for Mackenzie?
Just wondering.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, so you're doing quite a bit of work on Pleasant Street to make for a new driveway there? Is that what the drawing shows in the next document? Because you're removing an old wall and steps and putting in a new wall and...
Oh, right. Yeah, I have that here if you want.
Yeah, there it is there, yeah. So there will be removing that tree and that's where the new driveway's come in by 69?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's in between the house or the building is right here, and then
Yes.
there's the property line there.
Yeah.
So they are removing, there's kind of some stairs and a wall there that they have to remove to make that driveway.
Because it used to be, you used to win through that off of Dominion, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, so that driveway will still be there.
Still be
They're just
there?
adding another one.
No. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, no.
All right,
Do you have a motion?
please, thank you.
Yes, I move the town council of the town of Bridgewater give first consideration to the development agreement as contained in Appendix B of document 18-149A for 25 Dominion Street and schedule a public hearing during the regularly scheduled council meeting on February 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in council chambers at Town Hall.
Wonderful. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Fougier? All right. Any further discussion? Ready for the question?
Question?
All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. Perfect. We're all set. And congratulations on your permanent post, Mackenzie. We're happy to have you here. Not that we didn't like you before, but. All right. I'm never going to get to chair this meeting again. We've got no correspondence for information. We've got correspondence for action. Gary W. Ramey regarding 62466 King Street. Are we doing any discussion about that, or how does everybody feel? You've got the letter from Mr. Ramey in front of you. I would like to clarify, perhaps for the public, that there has been action in the past on his requests. Perhaps not the action that Mr. Ramey has would have liked to have seen, but there has been action. So it's not like we haven't been addressing the request.
I noticed in the document that they indicate that the town is intruding on his property. Is that something that we should be dealing with, or is that an issue at all?
The building encroaching into the right of way?
No, our street encroaches upon his property.
It may be another one of those sidewalk issues.
Yeah. That may just be from just the way the road got put in and the development there, but would there be legal lines? I don't think the road goes in the middle of the building or anything like that in terms of the right of way. It's probably just kind of, his building juts out a bit, and the boundary line follows that.
No,
It's not an ideal situation.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if part of the sidewalk is owned by us, would that influence whether or not we put something there to stop the traffic from going into that building? That building's been hit a lot of times since I've been in town. I still don't understand why or how, but it does. And so I think we refer to staff and get their recommendation onto it. And,
Encroachment is something that we'd look at.
yeah.
In that, yeah.
Any other discussion on that? Would you like to make that a motion then, Councilor McGinnis?
I will make that, yes.
All right.
I move the Town Council of Town of Bridgewater refer the letter dated January 8, 2019, document 19-005, to staff for report and recommendation.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Graves, thank you. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? Question's been called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. So we'll see what staff come back with. Reports and recommendations. So we've got Smart Cities Challenge update. I assume that's Mr. DeVried. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of council. I'm here to provide you with a short presentation following that illustrates parts of the staff report that you received. We've been producing approximately monthly staff reports on the Smart Cities Challenge program as requested by council. This is an unusually long one, but it's because we're really getting to the point where we have a preliminary program for you to consider, and staff's rationale for this staff report is to give you an opportunity to provide feedback on that, because we are now officially entering the last month of program design mode. And actually, because the next report to council on this is due February 14th, we've actually only got more on the order of about 2.5 weeks to make any substantial revisions to where things are going. So I look forward to hearing your feedback on what's been produced so far. So as you're aware, we've put forward a bold challenge statement to lift 20% out of our population out of energy poverty by 2028. That's been very well received by our community partners and the community. I see Councillor Graves nodding. Councillor Graves has been well involved with our project. Our best indication so far is that approximately 40% of Bridgewater's population experiences energy poverty in some form. So lifting 20% of our population out of energy poverty in approximately 10 years means reducing the energy poverty rate by 50% or half. So this was the initial logic that we used to develop our program. And there's been quite a lot of work happening in order to flesh out the details of the program and figure out how it would roll out in the community. This summary chart just provides some high-level engagement results. I'm pleased to say that as of today, over 10% of the community paper surveys have been returned. So that's a very high response rate, and they're coming in by the order of several hundred a day right now. So we're hoping that that continues to creep up maybe to 20 or even 30%, which would be phenomenal because it's providing us with a lot of very rich information about energy poverty in the community. Meetings with experts, of course, have been ongoing, and our community energy research program has wrapped up with fantastic participation from community partners. To illustrate many of the findings of the community energy poverty research program, the youth video that was launched 2 weeks ago was truly phenomenal. The youth video team, led by Heartwood Center for Community Youth Development, with the support of Picnic Studios and Department of Community Services, produced a 15-minute documentary that I think it's safe to say that it has strong impact when people viewed the video at the LCLC. And the youth did an incredible job and really illustrated what energy poverty is and what it would mean to the community to create a positive impact here. So in order to produce that impact, of course, that's what the whole Smart Cities Challenge is about. The staff report lays out a set of basically 5 program areas that would work together to achieve one overall energy poverty reduction program in the community. The program is unique. It would be unique in the Canadian context. And the core innovation really from the Smart Cities perspective is that we're using Smart Cities approaches to create a comprehensive energy management program for the community that is accessible to all residents regardless of their status or income. That's really the core of what it is, and it focuses on making sure that the community has access to these types of services as well as related services, because residents living in poverty have a variety of challenges that they need to meet. So what's called a coordinated access system as an important intake component for the program that would be shared with community partners. A housing energy management system that works to upgrade the energy efficiency of housing stock and produce new housing units that are highly energy efficient. Community energy systems, which feed low-cost, secure, renewable energy into our community's housing stock. A mobility improvement system, because we understand energy poverty to relate not only to home energy, but to transportation energy as well. So improving primarily transit and active transportation systems. And then an investment system to ensure that the money required to make these improvements can be brought into the community and can help achieve these outcomes. So these are I'll continue using these icons to explain the program in a little bit more detail. And just because there are quite a few complexities to it, this diagram illustrates how the program components relate to each other and how a client would experience it as well. So we start with households at risk who may be referred to our program through service providers who may self-identify. The core of the relationship with households at risk is the coordinated access system. So this is supported by a household navigator who has a function of having a personal relationship with these households, getting to know them, and providing them primarily community services that they may not be sufficiently connected to. Shelter services, employment services, financial services, etc. So the idea behind the coordinated access is that service providers are providing efficient services to the household, and that the household doesn't have to knock on all these doors themselves and make sure that, and retell their story over and over and over again. So it's really about making sure that clients are connected to services that they need. One of the services that we have created this front door for now is the housing energy management system. And at that point, the technical navigator would take over and would provide them with the services that relate to the town's main programs. So the technical navigator now is in coordination with the household navigator and provides property-related services to the household. Now, in the case of many households at risk, that property is not owned by them. That property is owned by a property owner. They're a tenant. So it's the technical navigator that makes the connection with the property owner. through the various services that are incorporated in the housing energy management system, that property is provided with financing, planning, and technical expertise to make property improvements, as well as to connect the property to community energy systems that are planned and coordinated in conjunction with the technical navigator. As well, information from both the technical navigator and the household navigator can feed through these smart cities approaches and use of data to our mobility improvement system, so that we can make sure that things like access to transit, active transportation services, walkability are made possible to the households at risk through a coordinated flow of information and planning. To round off the system, the investment system provides capital for the necessary improvements in all the other four programs. In addition, should the households at risk or the property owners have an opportunity and have the means to participate in the investing process, because after all, that the intention behind that is that that's something that generates investment from the community, the investment system can also generate dividends or returns for both parties, both types of clients. That's a very high-level explanation of how the different program components interface. Obviously, there's a lot more depth to that, but we wanted to provide one diagram that links everything together. Because this is a smart cities program, it's also important to articulate very carefully how is data managed in the program, where is that data stored, and how does it work? So that the layer that floats on top of these program elements, or that's part of it, is this concept of service provision and data. So community services are envisioned to be the coordinated access system, so that's outside of the town, that would be delivered by partners. Municipal services focus more on the other four components. And at the core of each of those set of services is a data platform. So the core of the community services is envisioned to be the HIFIS platform. HIFIS stands for Homelessness Information. Oh, I should have written that down. The Homelessness Information. There it is. The Homeless Individuals and Families Information System, which sounds like it's only for people experiencing homelessness, but it's not. It's a system that's being expanded by the federal government. It's a federal system to include all kinds of residents requiring services that relate to poverty. So it's really a national platform that we would be using to help coordinate the program. And on the municipal end, we are exploring the opportunity to use TownSuite as our data platform to coordinate these services, and we're working through those technical requirements with TownSuite. So again, there's a lot of detail there in the weeds, but I'm going to just keep it at that high level. Just a small note to say that there may be data systems as well that are external to TownSuite and external to our system. For example, for energy monitoring systems in homes or apartments, those would stay outside the system and would feed information in. And the investment system may also have an external component where, say, a local CDIF, for example, is operating in the background, providing investment dollars into the community. The program design is showing that the program will ramp up over 3 phases to a mature state, and will take increasingly more households each year in order to meet the program target of 1,000 households by 2028. And this shows the corresponding projected reduction in the energy poverty rate in the community. So as you can see, the 50% energy poverty rate reduction would be achieved by 2029-2030, but would not be achieved by 2025. So this is an important point that the staff report makes, which is that even though we can still project to the 10-year target of our challenge statement, we won't be able to do that yet by year 5. And we've received direct sort of feedback from the Smart Cities Challenge folks that they want us to implement the program basically in 5 years. So what can we achieve in 5 years? Basically to spend the grant money in a shorter window than in 10 years. All the Smart Cities Challenge communities have been advised that way. So what that's led us to do is to basically reframe our challenge statement. In addition, our initial challenge statement was by 2028. 10 years, we were building in a little extra time to allow for the award of the funding and some early development. So that's now 2030. So as a result, we're working with a draft new challenge statement that our community will reduce its energy poverty rate by 15% by 2025, while still maintaining our long-term goal of lifting 20% of our population out of energy poverty by 2030. So a bit of a shift in the overall frame, narrative. We're not sure we're totally happy yet. The staff working on this with the revised challenge statement doesn't quite have the impact of the original statement. If council has suggestions, we'd be happy to hear it. We still have a couple weeks to work on that, but just wanted to explain to you why we're reframing this and where that's come from. It's been driven by smart cities, the reduction of that timeline primarily. The staff report also provides some high-level information on the estimated costs of the program. While these numbers are very large and they appear very large, they're also not out of step with what council's already approved, with what's in the Community Energy Investment Plan. So we're basically providing additional detail in how the Community Energy Investment Plan dollars would be spent for households at risk. Right? That's the focus that we're giving our Smart Cities proposal. So we have an estimated cost. Right now, these numbers are subject to change as we continue to refine them. $24 million by 2025, $111 million by 2030. What's important about those numbers, though, is that not every dollar spent is equal to every other dollar. So the large majority of the costs in the program will generate positive return on investment. So they are investment-worthy dollars. And what we're splitting out in the program design is the money that can come from private investors and the money that needs to come from institutional investors. So really carefully stacking the available capital to support the program is a major component of the work that we're doing right now. And a large amount of that capital is driven by this investment value, and that's, of course, a business case that the CEIP made as well. This chart is our most up-to-date summary of the type of stacking that we're looking at in order to bring the program dollars home. Two items of particular note for council are that the green bars here are the Smart Cities Challenge dollars, so that adds up to $5 million over 5 years. And importantly, the first 2 years of program design can be entirely carried by the Smart Cities Challenge grant, so no additional grants are really needed during that time. And then once the program starts, investment dollars from different players would start coming in order to carry the program costs. So that's the logic behind the program. And of particular note is that this little tiny, tiny, tiny orange line here is the town of Bridgewater's costs. So an important piece of logic in the program is that this program should not affect the town's ability to pay for the program out of its tax base, right? This money is essentially floating above the town's tax base, and in fact, a large number of these dollars will never even pass through the town's books. If they do, it'll be done in a revenue-neutral manner. So that's some of the program design that's been brought to bear in the economic model. Just a couple more quick updates for you. We awarded 7 research contracts to local community organizations in support of the Energy Poverty Research Program, up to $1,000 each. The Energy Poverty Research Program is now complete, and we're busy analyzing those findings. We will make information available to council when that's in a form that's ready to be circulated. We have hired Davis Peer, privacy consulting firm, to assist us with producing the privacy impact assessment, which is actually quite an important deliverable for Smart Cities since it's a data-driven project, and they've been great to work with so far. Roswell Inc. and Green Power Labs, 2 contractors that we've already retained and that we've informed council about, have been offered contract extensions in order to help us shore up some of the remaining components of the plan, of course, all within budget. And the next steps in the program design process is that we're working for about 2.5 weeks to finalize the major components of the program, and we have about a month to complete the final application. We will be holding a final program design workshop with community partners on February 7th. And council will receive the final program design on February 25th for council's consideration and approval before the whole shebang gets mailed off to Smart Cities. We hope you'll approve it then. But if you don't, if you're not happy with anything, we really need to know as soon as possible. Happy to answer any questions you might
Perfect.
have about that.
Thank you, Leon. Questions? Councilor Davis.
Yes, Leon. A banker's question. When we win the Smart Cities Challenge
I like your optimism.
of $5 million, do we get a check up front? Because if you invested that, you should get at least 5%. That'd be $250,000 a year that we could reinvest.
Great question. In a word, no. The way that the grant is going to work is that the contribution agreement is based on achieving outcomes. So you're allowed to request an initial grant in order to get you started, but then you have to hit your outcome targets in order to enable the release of the remaining funds. What's interesting about it is it's a new kind of grant agreement. So they're typically based on showing that you've done the work and that you have receivable expenses. This one is actually based on demonstrating that you've improved people's lives. So it's a different kind of grant agreement. It actually creates a lot of flexibility, though, because what it does is it allows us to say, look, we decided to not design that program exactly the way we had shown you. We've made some mid-course corrections, but because of those corrections, we're actually achieving our outcomes better. And that enables, so that way we're not tied to what we initially proposed, because 5 years is a long time. Even 5 years is a long time to roll out a new kind of program. And so, yes, we have to put our thinking caps on and really work that contribution agreement proposal, but that's part of what will get presented to Smart Cities. Yeah.
Councilor Thorburn.
Just adding to what Councilor McGinnis said, so they've gone from our proposed 10-year program, they would like to see it done in 5 years, so would we have to spend their money in the first 5 years of the project?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the idea.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor McDowell.
Is it HIFIS?
It's HIFIS, yes.
HIFIS? So that's through the Department of Community Services. Am I following that correctly?
So
It's
HIFIS is a
basically the-
national program.
Right.
I would have to double check to see exactly who the holder is. I wonder if Greg knows. Do you know who's under which department, which federal agency?
Employment Social Development, Canada.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Bravo.
Well done.
So I hear people regularly say, there's great programming available, whether it's in healthcare or for seniors, youth, any number of agencies, but they have trouble finding the programs. Sometimes they feel like they need to stumble across them before they've found them, sometimes a little bit late, sometimes because of word of mouth, whatever it may be. Are you at all concerned that that may be the same situation with this program, that people may not be aware that it exists unless they stumble across it or, kind of happen across it?
Great question. So HIFIS itself isn't actually a program.
Mm-hmm.
HIFIS is a database,
Right.
right? HIFIS is there to be used as a tool by local programs. So it would be incumbent on us to make sure that we shape a very useful and accessible intake system or a coordinated access system that then simply uses HIFIS as its database for keeping personal information on the households that it serves.
Okay.
So HIFIS is a tool, not a program.
Right. Okay. No, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason that we're looking at using HIFIS is twofold. One is that we don't want to be the holders of a whole bunch of very private information about people, what their health concerns are, what their economic status is, all these things. We want that to be safely housed in a secure system, right? We also don't want that to be town responsibility. So there's community partners that we already know are willing to work with HIFIS in holding that data. So this, so for example, the work that's been happening with the community hub model, right? community hub model arose out of community partners coming together and saying, how can we do more coordinated service delivery, right? That's where it came from. HIFIS is attempting to be part of a solution for that kind of thinking.
Okay.
Better coordination between community services. So it's already there. It's already being used in that way. And because it's a national system, any other community in Canada can pick it up.
Right.
So one of the jury's criteria for us is to create a program that's replicable and scalable
Right.
to other communities. This database would be.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the background.
Completely
on,
misunderstood what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
try to write a better staff report next time.
Oh, no, it would probably me.
Any further questions? Leon, congratulations to you and your team for pulling all of this together, and you're almost at the end. Unfortunately, when you're at the end, once we win, you're going to be at the beginning again, I think. But for those that haven't seen the Starling Studios video, it's truly eye-opening and yeah, very moving. So I encourage the public to take a look at that for sure. So.
Is the video on our webpage, town website?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It's housed
In
on the
town?
town. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Leon.
Thank you very much.
All right.
If you have any other comments, please send them to me or my team, or to Jessica or Tammy. And it's a team effort at this point to get this thing ready.
Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic.
All right, moving on. Item 10.2, Policy 79, Purchasing and Tendering Policy Amendment, which is basically to add in the ability for staff to go to auctions for the most part, I believe. So, any further discussion on that, or are you ready for the? I'll need a motion to move that forward.
I would move
Thank
that
you, Councilor McDonald.
Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the revised purchasing and tendering policy, specifically to include auctions as an alternative procurement practice in Section 18(1)I, as presented in Document 19-003, and implemented as Policy 79 for the Town of Bridgewater, effective immediately.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Fagier, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Ready for the question?
Question?
Question been called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. Good policy, good purchasing, money-saving option, hopefully. Item 10.3, strategic priorities. I assume that's our CAO giving a quick overview?
Yeah.
All right.
So this should be familiar to councillors. This is the result of your session, your discussion session you had a few weeks ago with respects to developing the priorities for council going out for the next fiscal year. We've categorized those in a format that's familiar to you as well, the now, the next, and showed you how they fit within the boxes. Also included with that a work plan that gives you a little bit more definition to what each item is in terms of what is the issue and the desired outcome. The option, if once selected, it's noted, or it could be to be determined, and what actions over the immediate to sometime within this fiscal year will be taken with some target deadlines so that we can keep track of that. And so those will help form the basis of our work programs for the departments, as well as the development of the 2019-20 budget. So I do note in the report that there may be items that require capital or operating at some point in time. So that this is a plan. It can be adjusted, things can be added in, and things can be taken out. So you may very well end up during budget deliberations making some changes to this document as we look at the big picture in terms of our finances. But at this point, it would help us frame that, know where what council wants to achieve over the coming year, and we can make sure that that's reflected in our budget and work program. So I'm assuming that council doesn't want me to go through every item.
No.
But if you do have questions on any of the particular topics or priorities and what we expect to achieve over the next little while, please ask away.
Any further discussion or questions on that? I think it's pretty straightforward. Staff are certainly taking on a lot of projects on our behalf, so thank you for that. We need a motion to approve that direction. Councilor Graves? Oh,
Yeah, sure.
sorry.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve this revised strategic priorities chart and work plan as presented in document 19-006.
Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Thorburn. Any further discussion on that?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. What do we have next? Okay, 10.4, temporary borrowing resolution. So we need to borrow some money to get some projects
Yeah.
completed. Go ahead.
So this involves both debt financing that was proposed in the 2018-19 capital budget. Don has that noted as $686,500. Plus, council approved an additional $400,000 for wastewater treatment plant upgrades. And in addition to that, you had capital projects carried forward from 2017-18 capital budget, which weren't completed, but would be completed in 18-19, and those totaled $1,295,500. So the total altogether is $2,694,000, and what we require is a temporary borrowing resolution so that we can borrow those funds to pay for those capital items.
Perfect. Any further discussion on that? Pretty straightforward. Everybody's pointing to you, Councillor Thorburn.
Might as well. There goes. That whereas Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act provides that the town of Bridgewater, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, may borrow to expend funds for capital purpose authorized by statute. And whereas Clause 65 of the Municipal Government Act authorizes the town of Bridgewater to expend funds for capital purposes of G, equipping and maintaining fire departments or emergency service providers, K, recreational programs, X, lands and buildings required for municipal purpose, Z, acquisition of equipment, materials, vehicles, machinery, apparatus, implements, and plant for municipal purpose, AA, streets, culverts, retaining walls, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, AB, placing underground the wiring and other parts of the system for the supply or distribution of electricity, gas, steam, or other source of energy as a telecommunications system. AG, playgrounds, trails, including trails developed, operated, or maintained pursuant to an agreement made under Clause 59C, bicycle paths, swimming pools, ice arenas, and other recreational facilities. AK, wastewater facilities and stormwater systems, and ACA, providing for financing and installing energy-efficient equipment on private property, including without restricting the generality of foregoing solar panels. And whereas the specific amounts and description of the projects are contained in Schedule A, go figure.
That's not part of the motion.
And whereas the specific amounts and description of the projects are contained in Schedule A, be it therefore be resolved that under the authority of Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act, the municipality borrow a sum or sums not exceeding $2,694,000 in total for purposes set out above, subject to the approval of municipal affairs, and that the sum be borrowed by the issue and sale of debentures of the municipality to such an amount as the council deems necessary. That the issue of debentures be postponed pursuant to Section 92 of the Municipal Government Act, and that the municipality borrow from time to time a sum or sums not exceeding $2,694,000 in total from any chartered bank or trust company doing business in Nova Scotia. That the sum be borrowed for a period not exceeding 12 months from the date of the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs of this resolution. That the interest payable on the borrowing be paid at a rate to be agreed upon, and that the amount be borrowed repaid from the proceeds of the debentures when sold. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Take a deep breath. All right. Do we have a seconder on that?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McGinnis. Any further discussion?
Question.
Questions been called? All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. Don will be happy tomorrow morning, or tonight maybe. Item 11.1, application to purchase some land. So we've got some land sales potentially happening on Glen Allen Drive. Who wants to lead us on that?
I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, okay,
That
all right.
council had originally accepted an offer of $90,000, and that's based on your policy where we looked at, it wasn't surveyed, it was a plan showing the lot with approximate dimensions, and based on the frontage calculation, $90,000 plus HST was what was agreed to. Since then, we've had the lot surveyed as we get ready to sell the land. And we had assumed a width of 53 meters, and the survey shows a width of 50.5. So the buyer has submitted an amendment to the agreement of purchase and sale requesting that the price be adjusted accordingly based on our calculation for value of lots based on frontage. And therefore, the amended purchase price would be $86,000 plus HST.
Perfect.
And so what we would require is council to approve the amended purchase price.
Sounds good.
Is it common to have a wrong measurement?
Yeah, it could easily happen
Oh,
since the lots aren't, if they're not surveyed,
Okay.
you're working off a scale, so it's approximate.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Any questions?
motion.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor
Yes,
Fajir.
thank you. That town council for the town of Bridgewater accept the amended offer of $86,000 plus HST as presented in document 18-161B and direct staff to agree to the terms of the amendment to the agreement of purchase and sale.
Wonderful. Do we have a seconder? Councilor McDonald, thank you. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? Question's been
Question.
called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. And Councilor Fajir, you want to take the next one as well?
Sure.
Tied to this?
I'll move that town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the revised land sales policy, specifically to reflect a commission rate of 10% in section 6.2 as presented in document 18-161B and implement as policy 91 for the town of Bridgewater effective immediately.
Wonderful. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Thorburn, thank you. Ready for the question?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried. All right. Congratulations to the new property owner and to the town of Bridgewater for selling more property. Proposal from 11.2 proposal from Center for Local Prosperity, a letter of support. Any explanation on that? or-
Yeah, so
okay.
if council recalls, back in December, you received a presentation from Robert Cervelli. He's the executive director for the Center of Local Prosperity. And basically, he was proposing a proposal to council. He called it maximizing economic benefits through local procurement. And he was looking at two economic regions. One was the town of Bridgewater and the other was Cape Breton. And the objective was to build the capacity within the local economic environment for local procurement activities. And he saw smart cities and their community energy plan as an opportunity, especially if millions were going to be invested in the town of Bridgewater in terms of our smart cities program and proposal. So he wanted to bring to council the concept of basically building that capacity within the local economy, making businesses aware, mobilizing them essentially so that they could respond to procurement activities that the town may be undertaking as part of implementing the Smart Cities program. It was essentially a two to 3 year project, and it involved the town writing, of course, a letter of support for the proposal that they were going to be pitching, but also that the town provide funding and in terms of dollars as well as in-kind staff resource support as well. I think the total amount that they had proposed for the first year for 2019-20 would be $8,000 of cash and $20,000 in-kind staff time. And over the 3 years, our contribution would be $48,000 in cash and in-kind contribution of $85,000 of staff time. So staff were asked by council to take a look at this proposal to see if it had merit for the town of Bridgewater. And so we've done that, and we've basically concluded that the proposal itself, there's a few things. One, it may be a little premature, and that it's tied to the Smart Cities application, and we're contestant. So we're submitting our application, and we hope to win, but we don't know. So if we're not successful, the rollout in terms of how we implement our community energy plan might be a little slower than what we had anticipated. So that just brings to bear the question of economies of scale, because instead of doing it over 10 years, it could be 30. And so would the economy really be there to the magnitude that they were hoping? The other is that it's really not just the town of Bridgewater project, it's a regional project. The businesses in the region would benefit from this activity. And therefore, council may want to consider suggesting that it's a regional ask as opposed to just a local town of Bridgewater. It's our project. The region will benefit from that project if it moves forward. And lastly, in terms of the in-kind support, at this point, given what they're asking for, staff resources, staff are maximized right now. The staff that would be involved in this would be the ones that are implementing, or working on the smart cities, and it would be implementing the community energy investment plan. So that's going to take all of their time and resources to do that. So we wouldn't have the resources to give unless we shifted priorities and that chart we just looked at to make the space for the in-kind support. So staff's recommendation at this point is that given the uncertainty with the application with smart cities, it's a good application. We're competing Canada-wide. And given that it's a regional project and they ask for in-kind support at this point, we don't have the capacity to handle unless we shift priorities, that we write a letter of support, but indicate that at this point we're unable to commit to the financial or in-kind support request being made.
Any, Councilor McDonald?
Could that letter also include the feedback so that they can kind of adjust based on the feedback from the town as well?
In terms of the timing of their ask?
The timing and the capacity, because the capacity will
sure.
still be pretty strained,
Yeah.
even if we are winners, because like you said, that's the beginning again.
Yeah.
Just so that they're aware that,
Sure.
kind of where we are, so they may be able to make some adjustments as well.
Mhm. Yeah, we can certainly provide the reasons and the
Okay.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes, I know you explained the timeline wasn't with Smart Cities Challenge, not knowing the outcome there, and obviously they were asking for a financial contribution. So at this point, would there not be the need for it to go to budget deliberations? Is what you're saying? We're just offering the letter of support.
If at this point they're looking for our commitment I think in relatively short order, they have to make their application. I believe it was, they want the letter of support by the end of January.
Okay.
And the application is, do you remember when that is?
It's before, but our budget will be
Budget.
finalized. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we would have to look at pre-budget approval if you wish to make the financial contribution.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone want to make a motion?
Sure.
Councilor
The Town
Griggs.
Council of the Town of Bridgewater provide a letter of support for local procurement initiative as requested in document 18-165, and a presentation to council May December 10th, 2018 by Robert Savelli of the Center for Local Prosperity.
Do we have a seconder? Councilor Thorburn, thank you. Any further discussion?
Question.
Councilor McGinnis, question.
Never a big fan of letter of support.
Okay.
Never know what they're going to be used for. Is it going to be designated just for this project, i.e. Smart Cities Challenge?
It's for the initiative that the Center for Local Prosperity is proposing. So they're making an application for funding. Now they may have to alter that because of no municipal funding contribution, but they're making that pitch to the provincial government, I believe it is, looking for funding for this project. So it would be a letter of support in favor of their proposal, which is to build that local capacity to respond to the outcome of the State of Smart Cities Challenge, and that we will be investing in energy renewal or energy reduction projects heavily.
And-
Yeah, so they want to take advantage of that opportunity.
And the Center for Local Prosperity is a local organization?
They're based out of Annapolis Royal.
So they have-
So they're a Nova Scotia-based organization. They have membership broader than just Nova Scotia, however. And they've held some conferences and things like that. The project specifically is called Increasing Local Procurement from Public Sector Anchor Institutions, and they're applying specifically for a large grant from Invest Nova Scotia. That's specifically what this letter of support would be for. So it wouldn't be able to be used for,
Do we
just
know if there are
anything.
any other organizations going to be doing the same thing?
My understanding is that CBRM, I haven't checked back in yet to find out what the status of. They were asking both CBRM, Cape Breton Regional Municipality, as well as the town of Bridgewater specifically, to be their project sites and partners.
Just a comment on local procurement, not related to smart cities, but in Lunenburg, Queens County, we spend about $180 million a year on food, but virtually none of that food is produced here. So the purpose of this is what would happen if we could produce $90 million worth of food? What would happen to the community? That's what it's kind of about.
The one thing that I did forget to mention, and perhaps limitation, is that there are trade agreements that limit our ability to go directly to the local market. And we have a local preference in our purchasing policy for 5% for anything under 25,000. But the trade agreements have thresholds of, I think it's 25 for 50 and 100,000. And once you hit these certain thresholds based on the goods you're buying, you can't close it off to the world. You basically have to follow the trade agreement and open it up. So the local market would still have to be very much competitive, and you know, we couldn't go directly to them, but hopefully they would recognize that in this proposal too, that there are trade agreements that would have to be abided by.
And I think that's part of their pitch in this proposal, is to make local businesses competitive in a global market. That's sort of their angle, and which is, I think, great, but our ability to contribute people and dollars is limited at this point.
Okay.
Question?
Question has been called. All those in favor? Those against? Motion is carried, so we'll get that memo off to them and it's in support of that program. All right, last item of the night. 12.1, Bridgewater's getting old, but still has quite a spring in its step. February 13th, we'll be turning 120. And we've got some discussion back and forth on email about, let's not make this long and drawn out, but about what we're going to do on that particular day. So I think the last sort of piece we landed on with some debate is to sponsor a free skate at the LCLC, to give free transit rides all day on the bus, to do some hot chocolate at the LCLC, and potentially some treats for those that are riding the bus. I think that perhaps summarizes it. I'm looking at Patrick in the back, who might correct me if I'm, yeah, all right, thumbs up. So, and I know there was some other comments about, you know, is that doing enough? Is it reaching enough people? And so on and so forth. So just open it up for some perhaps quick conversation, and or that's what we're doing. So whatever you'd like to talk about.
The only thing I would add, I would suggest we might want to have a cake if we do a skate at the LCLC.
Okay. Patrick, can you bake a cake? Yeah.
Bake or find someone who can.
Oh, okay, okay.
We don't want
Whichever you
pressure.
prefer, whichever you prefer. Anything else?
I think we should be doing more myself, but, you know, if we open up the free transportation, if we do the skating, that's 300 people, there's 8,500 people in the town of Bridgewater. The market, our market is 15 or 16,000, the immediate area, and I think engaging 300 people is kind of small. I think, you know, we've done free buses before, we've done free skating before, so it doesn't really stand out as anything that's overly remarkable. It's certainly easy and it's certainly safe, but it's not overly remarkable. I don't think it has the ability to really engage people. I know a few years ago we did the cupcakes, but this year we could do cookies or something. But the thing is, it's getting people out into the community and going to places where people are and saying, hey, listen, it's the town's birthday, what do you think of the town? Here, have a cookie on us. It's that engagement piece which I think is really, really important. We may only get 700 or 800 people, which is obviously more than we'll get doing the bus and the skating, but at the same time, we'll have a conversation. But more importantly, I think they'll have a conversation. Man, I was at this part of town. I got a free cookie from the town of Bridgewater. It's their birthday. I had no idea they were 120, and the mayor was really nice, or the senior staff member was really nice, or the CAO, and you know what I mean? That's the value. That's the way I see it.
So, Councilor Thorburn.
Just backing on what Mike was saying, and I agree with Mike. I think we should be doing more. What's the possibility of us, the 6 of us, I think there's 5 or 6 nursing homes around the area, each one visiting one of those units. and taking some cookies and just coming in and saying hello and things like that. I think it deserves more than 200 or 300 people, and that way there you can pick up another 500 or 600. And I certainly wouldn't mind taking one of the ones and going around and knocking on doors and getting cupcakes or cookies.
Okay. Patrick, you're our almost Valentine's Day coordinator for the birthday party. What are your thoughts on that? Can you round us up some cookies to take around a bit?
Sure, we can talk about that if council's interested in making a trip out to nursing homes or.
Okay.
On the bus.
On the bus. How do you feel with that?
Oh, I've never been on the bus. I'll go on the bus.
Thanks, Patrick.
I should probably come up here to the
That's
podium
all right,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Another option would
I know
be
you're busy
to
up there.
take sort of the Talk Bridgewater approach as well. If council's interested in getting out on the street in different parts of our community and taking that approach, it's worked well from an engagement standpoint in the past, to Councillor Graves' point. So that would be an option too. That would be relatively small in terms of cost and potentially large in terms of impact.
Yeah, I think there's value in having a counselor, as I say, a senior staff member, if that's at all possible, out there, and people saying, wow, the mayor just gave me this, and my council doesn't go out and do this sort of stuff. I think there's really good PR value and good.
Okay. So the skate is scheduled for February 10th.
Correct.
The birthday is February 13th.
Yes.
How do you want to do the cookie display, Talk Bridgewater kind of concept on the 13th? Or try and target the 13th for that?
You don't have to do it on the birthday. You can certainly make it weather dependent and do it the week of,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be on the birthday.
Okay. So maybe we could, if everyone's in a relative, I see some nods, so I think everyone's relatively in agreement. So could you do another push out of your schedule?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
just
do
follow
exactly
that.
the same format that we've done for Talk
Perfect.
Bridgewater. Councillors can drop in their preferred date and location, and we'll go and promote it from there. Yeah.
Perfect. Councilor Fugere, you look like you had.
I was thinking the greater impact was when we picked one location
Yeah.
and, rotated that throughout the day for the council and the mayor. I just found that people knew in advance where we were, and it made a greater impact, and that's just my opinion.
It's a good opinion.
Do you have a suggestion on a central location?
Nope. I'm open to thoughts. Like I said, it depends, weather dependent, but I know we're probably going to be inside February.
So the only thing about that is if you're in an area like the mall, as an example, and you've got 150 cookies, then you can quickly get it done. If you're at Sobeys or Superstore or at the LCLC, and you'd want to pick a day at the LCLC where there's something going on, some activity. So, and the more places you are, the more people you'll see. Because what you don't want to have happen is nobody show up, right?
Good point. I'm
Yeah.
open to, an area that we have high traffic, like the mall or LCLC, whatever the majority feels.
Perhaps if we focused on two locations.
yeah.
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 Okay. We'll leave it in your good hands to push that out to us. Okay. All good?
Great.
That's it. We need
So
a mo-
moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinnis. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, folks.
There you go. There you go, Billy Boy.
That wasn't that.
I like that they were going to Sunday. Well, they can't get it.
Watch it all.